All right, hey everybody. It's another beautiful day in Montana, but today we're gonna be inside making some soup, but still get to enjoy some beautiful views. So this is a soup that I love, and I never liked soup before. This soup got me to start liking soup and enjoying soup. So I'm just gonna start, and I'm not a cooking show, so I'm not gonna go crazy on the cutting of vegetables and different things. Maybe just whatever I'm able to do that I think makes things easier, but I'm just gonna get to it. So, I'm gonna start with an onion, and obviously got to get this peeled off. All right, so this is the easiest way to cut an onion when it doesn't have to be perfectly small, but you still want it to be small. So I'm gonna get rid of that, and we're just gonna make cuts, and this is still holding it all together, and we're just gonna keep cutting. So we've already got a nice little start where each one can only be that large, and then I'm just gonna go for pretty small. I guess I should have got a bigger cutting board. But second hack, just use a paper towel and put water on it, and put that next to your onion you're cutting, and it will absorb all the stuff that stings your eyes. And it's not perfect, but it works pretty well if you don't like that. And we're gonna put them on 2, which maybe is gonna be a little hot. But we're gonna do onions first. You could do your meat first and try to brown it, but between browning it and not browning it for my meat, I haven't really noticed a very large difference, so I haven't been. Now, next is garlic. All right, we're gonna mince the garlic. Doesn't have to be crazy. Just however big of chunks you like. So, and that's the same with the onion. You can make it as large or as small as you want. I just like them smaller, and the same with garlic. And it's 1 onion, and you could do 3 to 5 cloves of garlic. So garlic's done, onion's done, and so we're just gonna let this continue to green up, and I'll show you guys again in a second. But it's gonna take a few minutes to get it all going, and then we'll put our garlic in once they are at a better consistency, and then we'll do our meat. All right. That was not working very well, recording by myself, so now I have a beautiful assistant helping me. Thank you, Sierra. So with the onions, they're currently cooking in there, and the garlic is going to go in there, and you're supposed to put it in after all of this stuff's getting green, but this is kind of one of the points I want to make. Any of these, the onions, garlic, potato, the meat, you can chop them up as much or as little as you want, and to be honest, you can add the ingredients in for the most part whenever you want. This soup is easy, it's yummy, and it just doesn't take very much to do it. So now that we've got those going, I'm just gonna keep letting these warm up, and I'm gonna start cutting my potatoes. So, of course, I'm going to get them all washed first. And these skins look really good. so I think I'm just gonna keep them on, but I'm still gonna use these to skin the parts that don't look good. And I'm just gonna use the sink to catch them all. Alright, they might not be as good as I thought they were. They're already almost mushy. There's the slightest mush to them, so they're still fine, and obviously you can tell that they're still fine, but much more than this and they would probably be bad. So, but I'm not going to overly focus on getting every part of this, just the parts that look especially bad. So, alright, I'm going to peel these and we're going to chop them. Alright, so I just peeled them, but I want to come back over to here. I just want to make it clear. Right now they're like whitish, and I want them to turn like a kind of translucent, more green. And they'll do that over time. I don't want them to actually be browning in the pan. Of course, again, you could if you wanted to. Now, for this one, we're going to be using just a sausage. But you could do this exact thing, all of the same ingredients, except for instead of doing like an Italian sausage, you could do hamburger meat and you could put 2 tablespoons of a curry. Or you could do chili, and you could just go on and look like soup for chili seasoning, find the chili, or curry seasoning, and all of these same ingredients: onion, garlic, potatoes, some type of broth. We're going to be using chicken broth, but it could be beef broth, it could be any broth, and then obviously our meat, and we're going to be putting coconut milk into it. You do not have to put the coconut milk into it. That would be a way to change it up again, putting it in sometimes, not putting it in others. But I love it, so I'm going to be putting it in. And we're doing the one with sausage this time, so besides some salt and pepper, it really doesn't take any seasonings. But if it doesn't taste like much, you probably don't have enough salt. So if you're like, this is like good, but add more salt. Alright, so we're going to start with cutting some potatoes, and I'm going to put you guys back up here just to get some potatoes cut. I don't have a fast way for this, so if somebody does in the comments, let me know. I like my potatoes cubed pretty small, and I don't really mind how long I cook them because I like the potatoes even if they're mushier, but I know that a lot of people prefer them to still have a lot of the well, to not be soft, to not be disintegrating. So what you do is you would just, when you put the potatoes into the broth, you would just check and make sure every so often with a fork. It usually takes about 20 minutes of them in the broth for them to soften. If you do larger potatoes, they're going to take longer. If you do smaller, it's going to take less time. And so back over here, you can see that they're starting to kind of turn green, and now the majority of them have turned green. So I'm just going to put our meat in now. I should probably wait a couple more minutes, but it doesn't really matter. Some people might think everything I'm saying is horrible, but I'm more concerned about actually cooking and getting a meal, and I kind of overanalyze and overthink things. And if I'm constantly thinking about how I'm supposed to do it, and that the onions have to go in at this exact time, and this needs to be browned, and this needs to happen, I haven't noticed that much of a difference in taste when I do, and I would rather make it simple and actually get it done. And what's also nice is that the meat's going to be cooked not only here, but also in the broth. So there's essentially no way that you can undercook, not essentially, there's no way you can undercook the meat when you're boiling it for 30 minutes. But we're just going to break it up. And just break it up as much as you like. If you want larger pieces of sausage every so often, then just cut them into, you know, pieces that size. And if you don't, then scramble it as much as you want to. And then, of course, if you wanted to make this recipe like larger, you know, if you have a bunch of people, this is going to feed the 4 of us pretty easily. Except for the 4 of us, I would usually probably do more like 6 potatoes and 2 pounds of meat, but we only have 1, so that's what we're using. But you really can just keep doubling it in a very simple manner. If you've got 3 pounds of sausage, grab like 12 potatoes, 3 onions, and then you can just freeze it and save it. This soup is awesome the next day, although it never lasts for me because I always end up eating 6 bowls if there's 6 bowls of it. So, okay, so I'm gonna wait to put these potatoes in. All right, so our meat is browning, if you want to show. Our onions look good. You can see that the sausage is seasoned. And I'm just going to throw the potatoes in and cut up my other 2 potatoes right now, even though those are going. And I just wanted to show that purely for the fact that, again, you can just start adding stuff as it goes in with this, all the way up until the broth. I think that you do want to get the meat to at least that point, but it doesn't really matter if the potatoes, the onions, or whatever are in it. But you want to get them to that point so they actually stay solid and together. But I'm just going to finish cutting these up, throw them in there, and then we'll be putting in some broth. And I like cutting my potatoes, like these ones you can see are a lot bigger than the ones before. I like having a few different sizes to work with. Sometimes the smaller ones, depending on how long you put them in there, will disintegrate into it, which will make the soup thicker and I think yummy, but it's also nice to have some texture too. All right, here we are. I'm gonna take this for a second. Potatoes, meat, onion, garlic, and now we're gonna have broth. I mean, there are so many soups, really anything that uses this. You could replace the potatoes with beans or rice. And then you could also, like we just have a curry seasoning. Well, okay, here we go. We have a curry seasoning. This one's a hot, it doesn't have to be. And I believe for a pot this size, it is 2 tablespoons of curry powder. And then obviously, if you needed more, you would just add more. You could add taco seasoning, just like you would with tacos, and you make like a delicious taco soup. Done that before. And like I said, you could do chili powder. So it's so simple, it's so easy. We're gonna get this chicken broth in there. There's not really a right time. I could just continue letting this go. I'd say the only thing you wouldn't want to happen is for this to get dry. But now with some of the fat in there. Oh, you know what I did forget though? It's a little late, but it's got such good flavor to it. I'm still gonna, and healthy fats, and I'm still gonna add it. Obviously, we got our extra virgin olive oil. Add that when you do your onions. Another example of why it doesn't matter when you do stuff. And it'd just be about 2 tablespoons. So, I'm just gonna be friendly with it. So, get it nice and mixed up. I'm just doing that because of flavor. I'm going to add some seasonings right now to go with it. But you're going to have to, I'm going to salt it again at the end. And then we've also got this peppercorn. It's got like some other stuff in it. It's not just black pepper. I think it tastes a lot better. Gotta make this a little bigger. Salt and pepper are pretty much going to be added to anything you do, but at least salt. If you're not getting that flavor, you may not have salt, so we're going to get our chicken broth in there, and it's a quart. And that's homemade chicken broth, but you could just use chicken stock, beef stock, whatever. And now you can see that everything's covered. So if it's not covered, then you didn't use enough. And it's just covered. So now we're just gonna let this get up to boiling. I forgot to say that when I put the meat in, I did have to turn it up because it obviously you're adding a pound of cold meat to it. But so we just did our chicken broth. We've got all of our other stuff, and this is just gonna go in at the very end. There's only one other addition, and that's vegetables. And vegetables are easy. You can add peppers and dice them up small or large. You can do carrots, peas, like with the curry, carrots and peas would be great. With this one, it's kale. You don't even taste the kale. And what we do is we just freeze it, and then when it comes out, it's all frozen, crush it up and pour it in here. You don't taste it, but it adds that nice vegetable in there, and it tastes good. But with most of these soups, there's no problem with adding almost any vegetable. If you like celery, add some celery. It really doesn't matter. You can add as much or as little vegetables as you want. If you absolutely do not like kale, don't add it. Just eat it as is. You don't taste the kale, so I like adding it, but you don't need to. So, all right, so this has pretty much just been sitting here boiling. So I'm gonna show what the potatoes should look like. I'm assuming they're probably ready. It went through fairly easy, but not perfect. So it's probably getting to the point where we could eat it, but it could also use a few more minutes. But we're probably gonna just be putting this on a very soft boil on low, and maybe even using this to make it go even slower, just a really soft boil, because my parents, one of them won't be home for 30 minutes, the other one won't be home for an hour, but this is what's for dinner. So I do need to show the next part of this though. So we've got coconut milk, and you're gonna want to get the canned, and you're gonna want to get the unsweetened. I mean, I suppose you could get sweetened if you wanted to, but we're just gonna dump a whole can in there, and it's full of yummy fatty goodness. Now I'm gonna wait a second more. I'm gonna make sure we have some kale, hopefully. There we go. And it's not even done yet. So you can see the kale is still leafy, and so now we're just gonna probably, yep, there we go. So then it's gonna turn into the shredded leafy goodness, and we will see you guys in a few minutes when I know those potatoes are for sure ready. All right, this is going to be the final clip, probably maybe a tasting clip at the end, but you can see this is what it looks like. These potatoes are starting to get nice and mushy. Yeah, I'll do the fork test once more just so you guys can see. Right, so it goes right through. That's where I like it. Could have done it earlier. Now we're just literally gonna dump this in there because we're at our end. We're gonna have to spill it everywhere, I suppose. Try to get all we can out of it. And we're gonna Now look how delicious this is already looking just from adding the coconut. Okay. You really don't taste the kale. It does not come through, but it's a good addition. And it's kind of a guessing game. You can do a ton, you can do a little. Like I could probably do this whole bag, but I'm not gonna, because I don't want to taste it. So rest of this is gonna go in the freezer for next time, and we're just gonna mix this in. Let it warm kind of back up. You could just cut kale up fresh too. You could just go buy kale and cut it up, and just use it fresh. To me, it's just super easy to cut the kale up when it's ready, freeze it, and have it ready. So I'm gonna go ahead and get a couple scoops here. Like I said in my dieting video, if you've been eating like pretty low carb or healthier than normal, you're not eating a lot of processed foods, you'll probably be shocked how much salt you need. And if you're super low energy, probably just need more salt. But here it is. It's gonna be delicious. I'm gonna end up putting some of this cayenne pepper, which I've talked about in some of my sickness videos. Cayenne pepper is awesome. It doesn't take much. It's extremely hot, but it doesn't last that long for me. I really enjoy it. It adds a little bit of flavor, but mainly it clears you out. It gets your blood flowing, and it is an awesome, healthy thing to use. But taste test. It's gonna be extremely hot. Freaking fantastic. Delicious. It's definitely a little mushy, which I like. So with the potatoes, if you want them to, just feel it with a fork. If you can push through it, it's starting to get soft. Can't even taste the kale, but it has a nice coconut to it. And the broth is delicious as it always is. So like I said earlier, you can turn this into a bunch of different soups. I'm gonna put this recipe in the description, but thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like and a follow, and we'll see you next time.